Hi guys! So today I'm going to be talking about mistakes. Doo doo doo. We never make those, do we? Yeah. Okay, so these are some of the problems that I run into, and I figured you might want to know especially if you're new, whether I'm going to deal with them or just leave them, or should you bother dealing with them? And you see I have some separate threads to mark where I've made the mistakes and that. This is going to be good for any row, but I found I made most of these on this row. So yeah, we'll see about the different mistakes and whether mistakes and problems, I guess, and whether you should deal with them. So this one I got here, and I realized this one I actually set up because I kept trying to do this, and of course I'd noticed before I ended up actually doing it. So, but what this one is this one here is a longer stitch. It's a triple instead of a double triple. And I kept trying to do it so often it was crazy. So I just did it up. This I actually wouldn't bother fixing. I just would. If I got to the point where I didn't notice it before I finished it off, I wouldn't even bother. You don't even notice it. Now, if it was something for a project for sale or something like that, I would probably fix them. But being that it's a lap blanket for myself, I'm not going to worry about it. Nobody's going to even notice unless you tell them. And that's the same for most of these things, is nobody's going to notice unless you tell them that you did it. So, like I said, this, I'm not going to worry about it. It happens sometimes, and you wouldn't even notice it in the grand scheme of things. Here, I sewed in the end of the thread on this round before I did this, and it ended up bulking up the edge too much that I can't get my 5.5mm hook through it very well. So instead, what I do is I'll grab when I get to that point where I need to grab yarn through, so we'll wrap it, 3 wraps, and instead of sticking through this one still fits, so nope, that one still fits, so we'll just do up this one quick. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So these ones here, you'll have more and more. Look at that. I'm just not having any trouble with that one at all. Oh, yes I am. Okay. This one I'm going under where you should go through instead of through it. So all I do is lay that off to the side for a second and use a smaller hook to get through the spot that I need to get through, and then poke the yarn, pull the yarn through using the smaller hook. So there we go. And of course, in the meantime, if you're not careful, you can lose your yarn. But if you pull through enough, 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to hook in here, pull it taut, and continue like you normally would. 1, 2, 3, and then now that you found the hole, you might be able to get through it the same way you did. 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, and then wrap it around again and again. We're going to have troubles because it's so tight. And now this one didn't end up being as tight as I thought it was going to be, but either way, it's first tape. It's to show you guys what can happen, because there was a couple that I did have to, like, I could not get this hook through at all, especially after the first time. But it gives you an idea anyway, even though this one ended up kind of being not quite as a big problem as I thought it was going to be. But it shows you what you can do anyway. And there you go. 3, 3, 3, and 3. We're good. And that's 2 problems fixed. This one here was a really, 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 really short end. What can you do with a really short end? And how can you sew that in? Now this end, I'd wait until I got the next row done. So we'll make this one a really short end. So that's really short. What can we do? Well, we'll put it on the needle anyway. And instead of going front ways through, weave it through using the back of the needle instead. And just shove the end through. It's going to come off the needle. It's the only way to get it to come through. And do it again. Do it again. So you just kind of try and make this in with, like, you want to split the yarn a little bit when you go through, just because it's such a short piece. And then you shove her through. And that should be good. You can always try one more time depending on the length that you have left. So just use the needle the wrong way. Can't see that very well. Is that the biggest needle I have? And this is a little pincushion that I made up. I was like, I wanted something to match. At this point, I've got a whole bunch of things made. I've got a coaster made, a little placemat kind of thing for my countertop, and I've almost got the curtain done, and I've got the centers for the blanket done. So, yeah. And okay, so this one here is a pain. And you've got 2 choices, and it'll depend on what you manage to do. I was crocheting along, and I forgot to make the chain. I missed putting the chain in between, like the chain 3. So I just went straight into the next stitch. Now this one, I will find it depends on where you made the mistake. If you did it close to the end, I'd probably just undo it. But being that it's close to the beginning, I would try to loosen it up a little bit by yanking on the stitches a little and trying to loosen up the stitch enough. Because once you if you get it loosened up enough, it's going to be covered by these. So if you can loosen it up a little bit, it'll be covered up and no one will know the difference once you get these stitches in there. So, like I said, for this one, it depends solely on where it is. So, where it's right at the beginning practically, I wouldn't undo it and it's loose. If it was really tight and I couldn't get it to loosen up a little, I would redo it. I would just unravel it and put in the 3 ends. You would need to make sure you had extra yarn for that. If you cut this too short, you would end up having to redo it. And this is where I show you this one. This one here, I got all the way around, got my ends sewn in, and bump, I missed a stitch. I had a really tight stitch here for the seam, and I missed it. So I've got 11 petals, not 12. So what can we do there? Well, if you've sewn in the end, what I would do, by the method that I showed you anyway, what I would do is I would cut here. Now if you can get the ends worked out, like if you just did a temporary knot like I did, like the knot is, well, it's a permanent knot, but I knot it and then I sew it in later so that one, it's got the knot in there and it'll keep it from coming undone. But in case I make mistakes now, this one here, I'm not going to have enough yarn to put in another full set of stitches. So at this point, I'm going to have to either undo it all. Now to get that extra stitch in there, if I missed one at the beginning, I just unravel the whole thing. But to get this one in here, I'll take my it's going to look kind of funny, but for some reason my ball just does not want to center pull, and if you pull straight up it works, but if you're pulling from the side at all, so I made a little hook out of a binder clip, so I put it through the handles of the binder clip and it keeps it hooked up above me. There are a lot of ways to tie your ends. In the case of joining yarn, you can just go for a classic square knot, or like they do when like the knots you find in the balls. And personally, I don't like the what is it, Russian join? Is it a Russian join where you kind of sew the ends in together? Because I find it gets bulked up too much. So I guess it depends on your preference. But I like a good knot. And I guess it also depends on where it is. If it's going to be in a chain, it might be better to do a Russian join, but it's going to be in the middle of a big stitch like this. It's going to be fairly hidden. Now see here, oops, that's my small hook, but I am going to need it to get through that stitch because it was a really tight stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and oh, there's my head. Come on. Yeah. Did I really go to town on joining that? I'm like sewing that in there, didn't I? I like really decided to get right in there. Come on, there we go. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm gonna hook that through. There we go. Now I'm gonna really hope that knot ends up in a good spot because I don't know if it'll go through that hole there. So 1, 2, 3, and the way this knot is, I'll end up cutting off the ends after. 1, 2, 3, and not ended up in a really good spot. There we go. Sometimes after you get in there the first try, you can manage to do it another time. 2 and 3. And I don't think I have much hope of getting in there again easily with that big hook. So, yeah, come on. There we go. And 1, 2, and 3. And then through all 3. 1, 2, 3. And give her a cut and sew the ends in. So, all was not lost, even though I didn't discover this one that I had done this to until after I tried putting the border on. So that was a bit of a pain. I got all the way around on the border and I went and it's, oh darn it. So I had to undo all that. So that being said, another tip would be just do a quick 3, 3, 3. Make sure you got all 12 petals. And you can avoid that trap. So that's about it. Yep, that would be about it. We covered all 5 situations that I've come across where I've run into little problems. And yeah, so if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And happy crocheting. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Let me know what you've gotten done with the projects. And I'd love to see them. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and bye.